Not all expert opinions should be given equal credence. I'm going to use scientists, doctors, and lawyers as my main examples of experts for this video. In some areas of expertise, expertise is real. It is not an imagined thing. There is a genuine divide between the hoi polloi, the normal people like yourself and myself, and the people who genuinely know a lot about their area of expertise and are able to say meaningful things about it. If, for instance, I was going to argue with a research scientist who studied the behavior of chimpanzees, and I was to give my opinion on chimpanzee behavior, having never studied it, never set foot in an area where chimpanzees lived naturally, it'd be kind of silly for me to even have an opinion about that. That's a statement of fact, something that's verifiable. When two scientists argue with each other, as Richard Feynman famously said, it's very friendly because they have an external standard outside of themselves that, one guy proposes one hypothesis, another guy proposes another hypothesis, and, they can kind of argue about which way they think it's going to go, but the standard is which way it actually goes when you actually run the experiment. And, there's a little bit of arguing afterwards about the method of the experiment. You can get into the nitty-gritty, but fundamentally, the standard is external, and it's real, and you either know it or you don't. That's science. The weird thing, though, is when it gets involved in human decision making. An example of that is in law. In law, you can be an expert in what the law says. You can be an expert on if you do this, then this will happen, giving the lay of the land. You can be an expert using an analogy on the map. Now the question is, where do you want to go? In the Code of Ethics for attorneys, the way this works is that the attorney chooses the methods to attain a particular end, but it is the client who hires the attorney who decides what the ends are going to be. And there's a dividing line between what decisions the attorney gets to make, decisions on how, and the client gets to make decisions on what ends are going to be accomplished. So the client is the one who gets to decide whether or not to settle the case. Is that what you want to achieve? Or do you want to push it all the way through trial? That kind of thing. You get to set strategic goals as the client. And the lawyer doesn't get to touch those or really argue with them. They can express an opinion. But fundamentally, when you're talking about the ends to be achieved, the client is the expert, not the attorney. And to the extent that the attorney has strong opinions about it, they have to be given as persuasive and not as an expert. Can you really be an expert on the way that someone is going to live their life and what they want to achieve? It's dicey. Another example of this is in medicine. Now, medicine and, for that matter, engineering are complicated because they are partially scientific and partially moral. A doctor's aim is to achieve health, and that word is complicated. It comes from the same root word in English as the word holy. And from that root, also the word holistic and whole. So something being complete. And that connection between health and holiness and wholeness and wholesomeness is kind of an ethical thing. You're saying that something is good, something is in its complete and non-broken state. Now, a doctor is an expert. The science makes a doctor an expert in the how of the body and the what of the body. The doctor can be an expert on if you do this, this will happen. If I cut this structure, this area of the body will go numb. Or if I do this treatment plan, these are the likely outcomes and these are the likely side effects. Those are all decisions that the doctor those are all areas of knowledge that the doctor is a genuine expert in. And the more specialized the doctor, the more expert in that subspecialty. But fundamentally, the question of health, what constitutes health, is a moral question. It is a question where you can have a genuine argument with your doctor about what the goals are. Now, in physical health, we all kind of tend to agree. Generally speaking, you want to keep all of your limbs intact. You want to make sure that you don't have cancer, and you want to live a nice, ripe old age to a nice, ripe old age. with your mental and physical faculties all well put together, right? We all kind of agree on what health is. There's some argument around the edges, but we all kind of know what that is. But when it comes to psychological health, it gets a lot more complicated. What defines sane versus insane? What defines what is desirable in mental health? You can have some genuine arguments with genuine disagreement with a so-called expert, because the expert can show you the map and be an expert in the map. If you do this, this will happen. But you are the one who gets to decide which way you want to go. The area where this is so interesting to me in public policy right now is with the transgender debate, because there's things like the DSM-5, which may define gender dysphoria one way. And there are questions about health, and there are public policy questions being debated in state legislatures all across the United States and around the world. This is a topic of conversation. But an expert saying this is what needs to be done for the standard of care isn't convincing. And the reason it isn't convincing is because you can tell me, if you have good research, you can answer questions of if this happens, this will happen. This is what is happening. Give a functional description. But the question of ought is a question of morals, ethics, and fundamentally of public policy. And so an expert on that isn't actually an expert and isn't more expert than you, dear listener. So it's interesting finding that divide. Engineering is another one of these hybrid disciplines where half of it is scientific, where it's strength of materials, it's testing, it's understanding physics. And then the other part of engineering is choosing what ends to attain with that knowledge. So generally speaking, if an expert is speaking in the scientific area, the area of what is true, the way things are, they are an expert. And your opinion sounds kind of silly arguing with an expert because they have knowledge and you don't, maybe, if they're more expert in it than you. But if an expert is talking about an ethical matter, we're all kind of on the same level when it comes to those arguments. And there is room for debate and discussion. There is room to argue with the experts. That's my 2 bits. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe below. And if you have comments, including angry comments, please leave those in the comment section below. I look forward to hearing from you. Have a good one. Bye.